Hi there, welcome back to the Car UK channel. You join me here at the Car Pitch, where I deal in cars under £5,000 retail. Now, in today's video, what I talk to you about, cheapy cars, the lower end of the market, particularly the sub £2,000 market, something that we do still sell here at the Car Pitch, dealing in cars under £5,000. Predominantly, most of our stock is, well, between £3,000 and £5,000 now, but we do get a little bit around the 2.5 and the odd bit under £2,000. Now, if you went back 5 years ago, you would see that most dealers used to sell quite a lot of the sort of under £2,000 stuff, particularly sort of smaller independent dealers. But it is something that is fading away. And there's lots of reasons for that. The main ones being that really this sort of sub £2,000 cars now aren't really viable for most dealers, particularly if they're going to have their own workshops working on them, or maybe they've got to use somebody else to fix the cars up. The margins aren't there anymore. And to be honest with you, you'd make more money selling the cars at a £5,000, £10,000, £20,000 because you generally will have more margin across them. And also you get lots of bolt-on products such as finance and warranties you can supply with these cars, you can upsell. And in some cases, you can actually earn more money out of the product, i.e. the services you attach to the car, your gap insurance, your car finance, your warranty packages, servicing packages. All those bits can actually add up to more than the actual profit you earn in the car. Now, in my market, what I deal in under the £5,000 stuff and the odd bit of £2,000 and under stuff as well, that is not a luxury that we have. So we have to focus on making sure the cars that we've got in stock, we can try and fix them up and maintain the margin we need in order to operate the business. And that is a very difficult market to be in, but it is one that I like and one that I wouldn't change because I love saving these older cars and putting them back on the road. But I'm going to show you a car now that we have sold, which was destined to probably be scrapped, but we saved it and have given it a new lease of life. But I think it might give you a good demonstration of why this particular vehicle would be viable for us to save, being hands-on and doing our own mechanicking, but why other dealers who might use third-party garages wouldn't go on and fix this car because the numbers just probably wouldn't make sense. Let me show you around this car and what we spent on it. Right, so here is the car we're going to use as an example today. So this is a sub £2,000 car that we have sold. I think we sold this for around, I think it was about $1,695. So it's a 2008 plate, excuse it's in the air, but it's a 2008 plate, the Citroen C1. Now, this Citroen C1 is basically a Toyota Aygo. They're all the same car. Toyota Aygo, Citroen C1, Peugeot 107. Cars that we really, really like here at the Car Pitch are the Aygos, 107s and C1s. They're probably one of our best sellers. Simple reason being is they're very cheap to run and extremely reliable. Extremely reliable. If you want a cheap, small run around and you're happy to run around in a C1 Aygo 107, trust me, you're making the right choice because you can't get any cheaper to run and they are, like I said, generally really, really nice things to drive and are actually quite reliable. However, this one was destined to be scrapped. However, we managed to purchase it from a dealer who otherwise, had we not got in contact with him, would have scrapped this car off, which would have been a shame because it's got years of life left in it. And subsequently, we have actually sold it to someone who watches the channel, and we are in the process now of prepping it and make sure it's all right for him. However, I completely understand when we go through the list of stuff we've got to do on this car, why your local garage probably wouldn't have actually gone on and fixed this car. They probably would love to have been able to, turn it around and sell it and get so much nice margin out of it, but it probably doesn't make any sense for them anymore. So anyhow, what have we done to this car? So, first of all, we'll start off with the straightforward things that you're going to find on a car of this age, which is basically things like suspension. So straight away now, we're looking at things like shockers and stuff like that. And the shockers on this car were a little bit sort of, how can I put it, lacking in dampness, so they've obviously had to be replaced. So there's straight away a nice bill there for at least probably £100 in parts for those as well, time you chucked all your mounts in, etc. Then you've got things like the drop links, which on Aygos and C1s are notorious for basically breaking and cracking. As you can see here, the bushes on them all go on them. Pretty much every single one goes like that. So you're going to have to put those on as well. That's probably another 20 quid for a pair of those you're going to have to do. Most of the time, we probably end up putting disc and pads on it. This is a rare exception in this one, where actually the disc and pads, as you can see here, with no actual lip on the disc, is actually quite good. So all we'd do with that is strip and clean it. Another thing this needed was a steering rack. So this one had a bit of a clunk in the steering. Usually you can just change the inner joints in them. However, this one had a little bit more going on with it. Basically, they had a bit of a problem with the yoke, so we've had to put a steering rack on it. Now, luckily, we actually had a steering rack for one of these, which we had lying around, so we've managed to salvage another steering rack to put on this. Had we not had that, it would have cost us about £150 for a brand new steering rack. So that has saved us a lot of money there. But to give you an example, if I'd gone down the second-hand route, which I probably wouldn't have liked to have done because you never know what you're getting, we'd have easily paid £60 for a second-hand rack. But obviously you're going to have to service the car, so we're going to look at basic things like servicing kits for it, so your plugs, your oil filters, your cabin filters, all things like that as well. Obviously they're going to be extra costs. Moving on to other things like mechanicals on this one, we've got things like, as you can see here, a horrible oil leak, which is actually coming from the plate here. So there's like a covering timing chain or a sort of engine plate here where they leak from, and a little bit on the sump, so that all needs resealing. It actually doesn't cost any money other than a little bit of sealing, but it is nonetheless is time and effort. And obviously imagine having to pay a garage to take all the downpipe and exhaust off, sump off, all the top casing off to do that. Plus as well, if those who are eager eye can see, there's a little bit of dust here as well, coolant dust, and that is coming from the water pump. Another common fault that goes wrong with iGos and C10 and 107s and C1s, sorry, is the water pumps leak. This is a prime example of one that has started to leak already. As you can see there, it's probably the original pump on it, which has done quite well for 16 years of use, but it needs changing. So again, another £20–30 there. Also as well on these, you got things like the rear engine mounts or gearbox mounts, you want to call it that. I'd call it a gearbox mount, but some would call it a rear engine mount. As you can see there, the bush is all cracked and gone, very common on this. So again, another £30 for that to be replaced. Usually on these as well, we've changed clutches in them, but however, this is a rare exception because this one doesn't need a clutch, like I said, which is quite rare because most of them, I'd say, 2 out of every 5 we get in need a clutch. Then we've got other things like servicing items like tyres. So these were the tyres that are on the car, as you can see here, horrible. On the other side as well, they're a bit worn on the outer edges, probably down to the fact that the steering wheel was all playing up. Well, we've got some nice new tyres here for it. No, we're not putting on Michelin Pilot Sports. We are on a budget here, but we are putting on half decent budget tyres. But nonetheless, you're still going to be paying in probably, for us, £20–25 on some cheap tyres, and obviously we're going to fit and balance them ourselves. So we put some brand new tyres on. Then you've got things like the bodywork as well. We're obviously going to make sure it looks half presentable. And this one, being red, did have a little bit of lack appeal on it. I don't think we've got any pictures of it. If we did, I'll show you here. But basically, it had a bit of lack appeal on the front bumper and a couple on the mirror caps as well. So we had to have them repainted to make it look smart again. End of the day, it might be an old car, but we do like it to go out looking presentable. Moving around to the back of the car, well, we've still got things to be doing going on with here. Things like the boot as well. We've got to change all the seals in the boot because on the C1s and 107s, they usually leak water in there, so we just basically change them all up. So we have to buy seal kits for those. Usually the boot carpets are always horrible in them, so we have to put brand new boot carpets in there as well. Then it can be little things even like wheel trims, you know, wheel trims like that. I can't stand those type of wheel trims. Plus they're all caught and horrible anyway. We want to smarten the car up. At the end of the day, it might be an old car, but we still want it to go out looking nice and looking presentable. So again, more cost burden there. Now, we always put half decent trims on stuff here. There are basically a copy of a Citroen wheel trim we buy, but again, they're like 30 quid. Now in fairness, we could put a trim on that's half the price of that, but we want to make sure it looks half decent, and we know they are a decent wheel trim, so we'll put them on as well. So as you can see here, we're already adding up a bit of money. We've also put rear springs on as well, because they're all nice and shiny on the back, because they're all horrible and corroded, so again, more cost involved there. Rear shockers on these are a little bit, how can I put it, well, not damping properly, so they're going to be changed. Again, another 40 quid for those. That's quite cheap actually for them, could we buy them online, but obviously it's still more cost. Then we have to go underneath as well and actually underseal all the vehicle, because on these they can suffer with a little bit of corrosion, usually near the back arches. I can show you here, they start to go around here when they get to a certain age. So basically the best thing to do is to basically underseal them when you've got a nice strong one like this, get them all undersealed and just basically tidy it all up. Flick off the loose rust, which is just surface rust, and underseal it, making sure all these bits here where the mounting points are all nice and strong. And if that's the case, we can just basically underseal it, or we can use other products like Lanagard, give it a bit of protection, make sure the new owner can have a fair few years usage out of it before we start getting a bit of tinworm showing. Then moving on, you've got little silly things like you might have bits of door trim you might need, or in this case a side repeater lens that's missing. So again, we have to buy those. They're like 20 quid for a set of those, and unfortunately only come in pairs, but we've got them in stock anyway. Key fobs, they're always a pain in the arse on these. They always fall apart, so they can be another 5–10 quid for a key fob. Moving on inside, little things like the airbag as well on this one. So we've got an airbag fault light, which is down to the squid inside the car. Again, still cheap to fix, but another part we need, another 20 or 30 quid for the squid unit on this one. Then you throw in things like a nice set of mats for it. We always get tailored ones, make proper ones for the car. Side repeater lens as well, that was missing as well, that was all exposed. We had to buy one of those. We had to get another second-hand one of those, that was about 7 or 8 quid. And then of course you've got all your costings anyway of basically valeting the vehicle, polishing it all up, and your staff costs as well. So as you can imagine, that can add up pretty quickly. Quick calculation there, just in parts alone, we could easily be spending on that vehicle and an MOT test as well, throw that in for good measure, in excess of nearly £300. And that is just for parts and an MOT test. Plus, remember, that is us doing the work ourselves. So quickly imagine if you were a dealer and you took that in part exchange at 500 quid. If you weren't very hands-on and basically you didn't have your own workshops or you rely on other people to do your prep, that could soon spiral out of control. Take that to a garage, you could easily put another 400 quid in labour on those jobs straight away that I've just mentioned, on top of the parts, and you could have a car there, what, 600-700 quid just to get prepped. And yes, you might have a decent car at the end of it, 1300-1400 quid costing or standing value as we call it, but look at the margin you're going to be making out of it. In a car that's probably $16.95 to sell at best, and you've got to pay the VAT minus cut of that as well, and you've took it in for £500 part exchange, it doesn't make much sense. Plus, you've also got to remember you've got to stand by these cars as well. It doesn't matter that it's a 2008 plate car. The law says if I sell you a car, I've got to make sure that it is fit for purpose, and I've got a liability period that I have to maintain. So all of a sudden, if you're that dealer out there and you're spending fortunes of having this car like this put back on the road for a tiny margin out of it, and you then got to stand by that car for a length of time, you could easily see why cars like this basically just get binned off to auctions, or in some cases could end up being scrapped. Now luckily for us, because we've got our own workshop and we basically carry out our own labour on vehicles, we're not burdened with those outside costs. Occasionally we'll have to use an outside source, but most of the work we do is in-house. So that does mean that we're able then to save cars like this because we're able to extract the margin that we are happy with in order to keep our business flowing. Yes, we probably would be miles better off selling 10 or even £20,000 cars. There's no doubt about it, we would be better off selling those types of vehicles. But to be honest with you, I don't want to do it. Not that I can't do it, not that it doesn't interest me, I just don't want to do it. I love saving these older cars like this, and I don't care that I might be making half as much money, because at the end of the day, work should be enjoyable. And although this job does have its stresses and its moments, nothing gives you more satisfaction when you take an old car like this, fix it up, and it can go back on the roads, being used as it should, getting someone to work, getting the kids to school, taking someone to hospital appointments, whatever it is, this car is being used as it was intended to. And best of all, cheap cars like that really annoy the government as well, because they hate it that you only pay 20 quid to keep that on the road each year. Anyway, I'll leave it there. I hope that gives you a little bit of insight into what might go into older cars like this, just to basically get them turned around and put back on the road. So thank you for watching this short video. If you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe to the Car UK channel. I hope you all have a great weekend. I've got a pitch update video going around the whole site talking about my stock and cars in general very soon in the next few days. And also we're back at the auction as well imminently with lots of content to follow. So make sure you check that out when it comes out. Thanks again, and I'll see you all in the next one.